Now on Denver 7 News at 5, a country on the brink of war. The U.S. saying Russia will definitely attack Ukraine.
It's apparent that he has made a decision. They're moving into the right positions to be able to conduct an attack.
In Colorado, Ukrainians rallying today in support of their families, friends, and fellow countrymen.
Always at these critical moments, Ukrainians throughout their history come true.
Plus, 70 years later, the family of a Colorado war veteran missing in action is one step closer to getting closure.
They were able to obtain 50 boxes of remains, and we're hoping out of the 300 that are there that he's in there.
U.S. officials say Russia has made the decision to attack Ukraine. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin made that announcement while in Lithuania today, saying, quote, "They are uncoiling and now poised to strike."
According to the Ukrainian military, the eastern part of Ukraine is under heavy artillery shelling by Russian separatists. They say 2 Ukrainian soldiers have died as a result. Ukrainian military officials accuse the separatists of committing more than 70 ceasefire violations in the last 24 hours.
Thank you for joining us at 5. I'm JACLYN Allen.
I'm Brian Wang. We're going to bring you the latest on how Ukrainians in Colorado are rallying for their home country in just a moment.
But first, we want to get you up to speed on what's happening right now in Eastern Europe and the latest actions from U.S. officials. ABC's Aaron Katersky starts us off tonight from Ukraine.
Amid escalating tensions between Ukraine and Russia, the U.S. is continuing to warn Russia could invade Ukraine any day. President Biden told reporters Friday he's convinced Russian President Putin has decided to take military action, but the president said diplomatic resolutions remain a possibility. Asked about it today, Biden didn't answer.
What's the latest on Ukraine, Mr. President? Good to see you.
U.S. officials say more than 150,000 Russian troops are massed near Ukraine's borders. New satellite images showing Russian military activity building up in Belarus, Crimea, and western Russia. Russia conducted drills involving advanced hypersonic missiles with its neighbor Belarus, with Presidents Putin and Alexander Lukashenko watching from Moscow. In Russian-led breakaway parts of eastern Ukraine, separatists called for civilians to evacuate and accused Ukraine, without evidence, of preparing to launch its own attack. The U.S. sees this as part of Russia's attempt to cast Ukraine as the aggressor and invade under the pretext of protecting Russian-speaking citizens. ABC's Ian Pennell is in Kyiv.
The West is warning that this could be the pretext for a Russian invasion, because Vladimir Putin is claiming that the Russian speakers in the east of the country are under attack.
In Germany, Ukrainian President Zelensky, the U.S. national security team, and NATO allies gathered to talk about a diplomatic solution. Vice President Kamala Harris said one is still possible, but she issued this warning.
If Russia further invades Ukraine, the United States, together with our allies and partners, will impose significant and unprecedented economic costs.
Aaron Katersky, ABC News, Lviv, Ukraine.
Now, many Ukrainians in the eastern part of the country are rushing to the few ATMs that still have money, hoping to take out what they can before it's too late. But unfortunately, many are struggling to withdraw that money.
Now, this may seem far away, but what's happening on the other side of the world does affect us right here in Colorado. For one, experts say Americans are going to feel the first impact on their wallets. Russia is a major exporter of oil and natural gas. CNN says a Russian invasion means gas prices will likely soar. Now, another reason federal officials are worried is the message this move sends to other countries, such as China, where leaders have shown interest in Taiwan.
Dozens of Ukrainians in Colorado gathered at the state capitol today in solidarity with their loved ones back home.
That's right. They are concerned for their family's safety and the future of their home country. Denver 7's PATTRIK PEREZ was at that rally.
It's not just Ukrainians here at the state capitol. We also saw people from neighboring countries like Belarus and Lithuania showing their support. They fear that if this Russian invasion does actually happen, their home countries could be next. It was a lively morning at the state capitol Saturday, as Ukrainians from around Colorado united in solidarity. Lilea Sabachko moved to Colorado from Ukraine in 2002, but her mother, sister, and other family still live there.
They have no place to hide. They know it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Among the crowd were people of all ages, each with their own story to tell, including retired U.S. Colonel Gleb Hayuk.
I have a hard time talking without becoming emotional.
No stranger to war, Gleb says what we're seeing now is history repeating itself, which will likely have another costly and deadly outcome.
Tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people in Ukraine will die, but so will many, many Russian young men and women from Russia.
But Ukrainians are not alone in their quest for hope and freedom. Coloradans from countries like Lithuania and Belarus showed up to support and stand with their neighbors.
It's just a matter of time. If he takes Ukraine, he's taking the Baltics next.
For now, all they can do is stand by from afar and hope for the best.
Always at these critical moments, Ukrainians throughout their history come true.
This rally here at the state capitol was planned ahead of tomorrow's rally at the nation's capital, where Ukrainians from around the country are expected to gather and show their support. We're in Denver. I'm Patrick Perez, Denver 7.
Patrick, thank you. All right, today is the day of remembrance for Japanese Americans interned during World War II. On this date, 80 years ago, President Franklin Roosevelt signed the executive order legalizing the forced imprisonment of anyone with Japanese ancestry. To mark the date and celebrate the passing of the Amachi National Historic Site Act, Colorado Senator Michael Bennet, Representative Joe Neguse, and U.S. Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland visited the site. They took a tour of the future national park. Also along for the tour was Derek Okubu. During World War II, 3 generations of his family were interned at Camp Amachi. He also spent over 8 years working to preserve the site.
Years ago, I remember my father talking about that their dream was one day that the National Park Service would help and take over, that this would become a unit of the National Park Service. And so when this happened, went through the vote the other day, they were the first ones I thought of because their dream came true. All the vandalism stopped.
The bill to make Amachi a national park still needs final approval from the House. It's expected to face little to no opposition.
The family of a Colorado war veteran whose remains were never found could soon be getting some closure. As Denver 7's Christian Lopez shows us, they're hopeful this homecoming that's been in the making for 70 years.
The Jeffers family's patriotism is always on display.
This is my dad.
Serving in the military is a tradition passed on from generation to generation. Sarah's dad served in the Navy during Vietnam, and her husband is a U.S. Army veteran.
So this is pretty sweet.
But there's a missing piece to this family's military history.
My great uncle's name was Richard Lee Hall, and he is a Korean War veteran. He was a corporal in the U.S. Army, and he was part of the 555th Field Artillery.
She says her great uncle's remains were never found.
I never really found out what happened to him, so I just kept researching, and I found an individual who was actually in his unit who wrote an article, like a biography, and he had the exact account of that day, and he actually eyewitnessed my uncle, and that kind of closed the chapter for me.
And recently, the family was given new hope.
My dad was contacted by the Defense POW MIA accounting agency to give DNA because a lot of the military personnel from Korea didn't come back home. The last person I spoke to, it was like last week as a follow-up, they were able to obtain 50 boxes of remains, and we're hoping out of the 300 that are there that he's in there.
Sarah has taken on the task to finally get answers and closure.
That I feel like I think I'm supposed to be the one to figure it all out and hopefully get him home. I think it really means a lot to my dad. It was his uncle on his mom's side, and they're just really proud of the efforts that I've done. So hopefully we can bring him back.
That location would be Fort Logan National Cemetery, where Hall's gravesite has been empty for many years.
My goal is to definitely have him back here because it's been 70 years since, my family, who I've never really gotten a chance to meet, to bring him home, and I worked really hard, so I think it would be great to put him to rest.
In Parker, Christian Lopez, Denver 7.
And we'll have to see just how those efforts go. Christian, thank you. Police arrested a Colorado congressional candidate this week. Joshua Rodriguez is running as a Democrat to represent the 8th Congressional District. Arvada police took him into custody Thursday morning on a felony warrant. Rodriguez skipped a court appearance in 2021 for multiple felony charges, including identity theft and forgery.
Colorado lawmakers turned down a potential design for fencing around the state capitol. They saw a mock section of the design yesterday, and lawmakers say they did not like the spikes at the top or that Colorado insignia attached to the bars. Discussions about putting a fence around the capitol started in the summer of 2020. You'll remember that's after protesters caused millions in damage to the building.
Boulder County has once again extended its deadline for homeowners to take part in the county's debris removal program. That deadline was originally set for midnight last night, but it's now moved to next Friday. People wanting to sign up for the program will need to complete a right of entry form. Those can be found on Boulder County's website.
Marshall fire victims have less than 2 weeks left to apply for a disaster loan through the Small Business Administration. The deadline to submit the application is March 1st, and the SBA says it's already approved more than $75 million in disaster recovery loans for people affected by the fire. More than $71 million has been approved for homeowners and renters, and another $4 million has been given to businesses and private nonprofits. Nearly all Coloradans are now immune to the Omicron coronavirus variant. Now, why the state health officials say it is still a little too early to celebrate.
If you're feeling the need for speed, we have a high-octane way to see the beautiful Colorado backcountry.
Gorgeous weather for us today here across the Front Range. Afternoon highs close to 60 degrees, and as we go through the rest of the night, we'll still be in the 40s and 50s all the way through 9 o'clock. But as we head through the next couple of days, big changes on the way with some Arctic air and snow, and we'll talk about it all coming up.